Hi there, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be discussing the difference between the Queen's Gambit book and the Queen's Gambit miniseries on Netflix.
It's Brittany, bitch.
So I recently read The Queen's Gambit and I wanted to give you a full review of the book as well as compare it to the Netflix limited series, which is extremely popular, featuring Anya Taylor-Joy. And she is just a joy to watch on screen, but I wanted to give you the background to the actual show and see what compares. So let's start off with the book. I ended up rating this 5 stars and I just became completely obsessed with it, and I wasn't expecting to. Full disclosure, I actually watched the Netflix limited series first, and I also watched it 3 times in 2 weeks. If that doesn't say something, I don't know what will. I requested the book from my library. I just wanted to give it a shot. I wanted to see if it was any good. I wasn't actually particularly interested in it, and I didn't have any expectations of the novel. I really just wanted to see what the source material for one of the best shows I've seen the last couple of years was. And the book did not disappoint. I really gave it 4.5 stars. There were a couple things in the book I did not like that were not in the show that I feel like definitely detracted from the book. But overall, I rounded up to 5 stars. It was a fantastic read and I would 100% recommend it. If you have no general knowledge of chess, you will still be able to understand this book. You do not have to be a chess champion or even have an average knowledge of chess to understand this book, because the chess scenes are so incredibly fast-paced and anxiety-inducing that even if you don't understand what pawn to b4 means, you understand what's happening within her head and how she's feeling and what's going on. It is a coming-of-age story for Beth Harmon. She is by far one of the best female characters I have read/seen in years. She is impeccable. So our main character, Beth, shows up to an orphanage because her mother just recently died in a car accident, and that's all we really know. So while Beth is at the orphanage, all of the children there are given tranquilizers to make them obviously a lot easier to deal with. And shortly thereafter, all the tranquilizers are banned from the country, and all the children have to go cold turkey. So obviously all the children, including Beth, go through some serious withdrawals. Her drug use plays a really big role in this book, and if you do some research into the author himself, Walter Tevis, he actually had some barbiturate issues as well, and so it makes perfect sense that he would write a character that has drug problems. While she's at the orphanage, she meets the downstairs janitor and he helps her play chess, and she falls in love with the game of chess, and she quickly becomes a chess prodigy, and she realizes it is the one thing she has an affinity for. She is an otherwise really great student as well, but chess is the one thing that she truly excels at and just comes so intuitively to her. We then follow Beth through all of these chess tournaments against very prestigious chess players, including grandmasters, which are they're masters of chess. And this takes place in the 1950s and 60s, where it is obviously not very common for women to be playing chess. And so Beth definitely has a few difficulties in terms of sexism. Beth never sees herself as a woman chess player. She always sees herself as a chess player. And even when she is badgered about what is it like to be a woman in chess, she's like, I'm playing chess, what's the big deal? I don't want to spoil the book for you if you have not read it, but we follow Beth through all of her chess games, and she even goes all the way to Russia to play the Grand Master of that time, and we see her try to navigate this chess world and what it's like to be a young chess prodigy and what that means, especially with her being a woman playing chess. Now, let's talk about the show a little bit. If you haven't heard about this Netflix show, I'd be extremely surprised, because within the first month of this show being released, 62 million people watched it, making this Netflix's most watched limited series. That is impressive, especially a show about chess. And in the following weeks after the show released, the general population's interest in chess skyrocketed, including chess books, chess games, chess searches online. It blew up. This was an extremely popular show last year, and for me, it still is. It's still probably one of my favorite Netflix shows, maybe of all time, because it is just so well done. The show to me is a very true adaptation of the book. It is one of the best, if not the best, adaptation I have ever seen to screen. There are a few minor differences, but I honestly feel like the show made some better improvements. The show is obviously a lot more glamorous, and it also kind of glamorizes the alcohol and drug abuse, and it also kind of romanticizes her depression and her self-sabotaging tendencies. Naturally, this is a Netflix show. What do you expect? In the book, it is not as glamorous, but the show definitely puts this edge of glamour into everything that Beth Harmon does, but I also think that's part of the casting. Anya Taylor-Joy, she just has this essence about her that is very regal and majestic, and it's almost like she's better than you. and it's probably because she is. I think one of the things that this show does really well is showcase chess and how amazing it is, because I think so many of us think that chess is so boring, but the book and the show can actively show us how interesting chess really is and how nail-biting it is and how anxiety-inducing and how so much you want Beth Harmon to win, not just because she's a woman, but because she is her. Beth is a bit of a socially awkward individual, and I think that just makes it so much more interesting to watch kind of a chess nerd be so glamorized and be so beautiful and be so sought after, honestly. Everyone kind of falls in love with her, and you do too. But let's get into some spoilers for the book and the show. So one of the biggest spoilers you're gonna have is that there's actually a sexual assault in the book. It is very early on, and it's just very unexpected, and it's definitely one of the things I don't like about the book because I feel like it was pretty unnecessary, other than the fact that it kind of shows the mildly sexual undertone that the book and the show have. The sexual assault to me was not necessary. I know for a lot of other people it wasn't as well. So to be frank, Jolene, who is her friend at the orphanage, comes to her one night and they mutually masturbate one another, and Beth is not into it, and she lets Jolene know, and the next day Jolene calls her a cracker, and then Beth Harmon comes back with the N-word. So very, very different, was not included in the show, and I think for a very good reason. I think that scene absolutely should have been omitted. One of the other big differences for me is that in the show, Jolene just shows up out of the blue and just seems like that black friend here to help the white friend, and I just was not there for that. In the book, it is very different. In the book, Beth actually calls out the orphanage to find out what's going on with Jolene because she knows that she needs help. And Jolene is one of her only friends in the world. And so she calls on Jolene to have her help her get sober. And Jolene literally makes her like run every single day and takes care of her and kind of nurses her back to health. It's just a very different relationship. There's also some key differences in Jolene and her job and her life status. Those are a couple things that definitely bothered me about the adaptation to the show. But again, we want to glamorize and dramatize everything. I say one of the other big key differences between the show and the book is that there are no flashback scenes in the book about Beth's mother and what happened to her. We have no allusion to the fact that she was possibly ill or she was a very smart woman. The show definitely makes a comparison between high intelligence and addiction issues, which I think is a very valid point, but at the same time, it wasn't in the book at all. In the book, her mother died, now Beth is an orphan. Period. So if you don't like books that have flashbacks, don't worry, this book does not have it in there. It's a linear timeline of Beth when she's a child at the orphanage to when she competes against this Russian grandmaster. So my final thoughts, what would I rather do? Read the book or watch the show? I really don't know. They're a very close call. I read the book in 2 days. It was fantastic. And I watched the show 3 times in the first 2 weeks that it came out. And I told everyone about it. They're both pretty close for me. But if I honestly had to choose, I think I would choose the book. In the book, you were in her head completely and you just feel everything for her like you do in the show, but I would say it's at least ×5. It is just all about Beth and you're in her brain and you know what's happening to her. And it's kind of this unassuming writing style, like an Ernest Hemingway type of writing style it's just so plain and in your face and you get to make all your assumptions about everything else in the scene. So I would absolutely choose the book, but the show is a very close second. If you're not interested in reading, I would just watch the show. The show is a very true adaptation to the book, and I think it obviously omitted some things that I didn't want in the book originally. And it was a really true adaptation. There are a lot of great moments. The casting was wonderful, the acting was wonderful, the scenes were wonderful, the cinematography was wonderful. Overall, the show is just a fantastic show, and I couldn't recommend it more. Please let me know what you thought about the show and or the book down below. I'm really curious to see your opinions on it. I've seen a lot of polarizing opinions and a lot of different fan theories about things. So please let me know if you have any thoughts down below. And as always, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!